Welcome back to another episode of DRM Unfiltered, the podcast that dares to go beyond the buzzwords. No fluff, no filters, just the voices of shaping tomorrow. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that's top of mind for many organizations, especially PMOs and capital program teams. As many of you know, Microsoft Project Online is scheduled to reach end of life on September 30th, 2026, just a few months down the road. That might sound like it is a ways off, but in reality, the clock is already ticking. To help us unpack with this, we are going to be bringing on, and I'm joined by Chad Wattendorf. He's the product management director for Oracle Construction Engineering. Chad, welcome to DRM Unfiltered. Please feel free to share an introduction of yourself to our audience.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Very, very glad to be here. Thank you for asking. My name is Chad Wattendorf. I'm Director of Product Management for P6 and Oracle Primavera Cloud, otherwise known as OPC. We'll call it OPC the rest of the way to save some syllables. I am an old Primavera veteran. Been with the company since 2003, so many years before we even got acquired by Oracle. Throughout that time, what is that? That's 23 years or so now. I've been working on either P6 or OPC in many different roles. Happy to be here to talk more about OPC.
Excellent. I'm glad you could take some time out, and we're going to throw some questions your way and kind of give everybody what we're looking at in terms of what this end of life could mean and what we'd like to do to educate them on what's out there in the market. So, as I mentioned, and for people who haven't heard the news, what is exactly happening with Microsoft Project Online, and why should capital program leaders start paying attention to this right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you mentioned, MSP Online is being deprecated and going away towards the end of September. This was announced many months ago now. Time goes by quickly, like you said, right? It's going to be September before you know it. And with with the deprecation of that, of course, there's many companies who are using it who are just trying to determine what their path forward is. When it comes to robust scheduling applications, P6 has long been, along with MSP, one of the leaders. In the last few years, we focused a lot of our development on Oracle Primavera Cloud, which is kind of our next generation scheduling platform. That's how I like to think of it. And with OPC being a new entrant and being cloud only, it's a bit less of a lift for customers to kind of migrate to. You don't have to worry about any installs or anything like that. With it being a new entrant and it doing a lot of the same things that P6 does, but maybe being a little more approachable scheduling solution than something like P6. Over the years, we've gotten a lot of feedback on P6 that it's not necessarily the easiest solution to use. Once you learn it, it's very, very powerful, but it can take a little bit of time. So a little bit less of a learning curve for a tool like OPC, even though it has all the same power behind it. It's a great opportunity for any MSP Online customers who still have scheduling needs to take a look at OPC or P6 for that matter. But for most MSP Online customers, we believe that OPC would likely be the better fit.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, and I mentioned it too. I mean, September 30th it sounds like it's far away, and we're halfway through May. I mean, we're only about a little over 4 months away from this deadline. So in your experience, how does a platform migration realistically take for organizations that are managing those large capital programs? And what does that mean for where they should be in their decision-making process today, knowing that we're only about 4 months out from that deadline?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Of course, it's going to vary by customer and kind of what their internal processes are. Things here at Oracle take a long time. We're a large company. There's a lot of red tape to get through. So if you work for one of those companies, any kind of migration from one system to an enterprise system is going to take a bit of time. Um, there's lots involved with the process. Um, and part of it also depends on, the overall size of your MSP footprint as well. And I say MSP, but this could also be true for any other product that a customer could be coming from. But in my experience, for large organizations, it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 years really to fully make the transition. And so obviously, with MSP online going away in just a few months, there's not 1 to 3 years available, right? But you can at least get the process started. And that's not to say that it's always going to take that long. Like it depends on the company and what kind of timelines and directives they're working against. But there's certainly training involved. Not only the good thing is that there's a very short turnaround time for OPC from the time that a customer places an order till the time they have a tenant provisioned in our cloud environment. We're talking just a matter of days, really, and so that part is quick. The rest of it is what takes a little bit of time. You need to get your users trained up. A lot of our customers do create some training materials to help their users that are more focused on how their organizations run their projects. And you do also have to gain some buy-in from your users, right? It's a big transition to go from one product to another. It doesn't even matter how similar they are. Once we see this even with P6 to OPC migrations, and we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, as we go through here. Even though there's a lot of similarities between the products, it's still a new product, and there's new nomenclature, there's new workflows, right? You just have to get used to it, and most of our customers try not to do that on live projects. They will do some testing and get used to the system before rolling it out on live projects, so that can take some time as well. And if you're talking about hundreds or thousands of users, they're not all going to be ready to move at the same time for a variety of reasons. They might have, long-term in-flight projects in a tool like P6 or MSP. And so you got to wait for those to finish out. So that's why the process can sometimes take years, but I've also seen it done in just a few months as well.
Yeah, perfect. And we've seen that as well too, whether it's moving from say P6 to OPC or other tools that are out there. It's usually a pretty quick process that these owners really don't understand. Kind of moving on, Microsoft Project, you mentioned this earlier, Microsoft Project and P6 have kind of been the standard of the industry. And we know Microsoft Project Online has a large install base and people are comfortable with it. What do you see are the biggest capability gaps that capital program owners typically don't realize they have until they move to, say, an OPC?
Yeah, really, really great question. I think there's many things that we can touch on here. One is the overall scalability of the solutions. Our solutions are designed and built to support the largest, most complex projects in the world. And that is also true for OPC, just like it is for P6. OPC supports up to 100,000 activities in a schedule, for example. That's a very large schedule, right? And yeah, most other tools can't compete with that. So there's that. There are, excuse me, lots of features that we've added to OPC over the years that don't exist in either P6 or MSP. So you think about, of course, the entire risk module that exists in OPC or the entire task module that exists in OPC. OPC is really intended to be more of a scheduling platform. It is not a scheduling tool. Okay. Some of the other solutions out there are more like they're focused mostly on scheduling, and OPC does most of the same things that tools like MSP and P6 do from a scheduling perspective, but really expands upon that. through Monte Carlo risk analysis, a full last planner solution for our field teams, very robust portfolio management, et cetera. And so you can really, over time, incorporate a lot more personas and disciplines into the usage of OPC than you can with something like MSP Online. Uh, and then in terms of like scheduling features, there's really cool features that once people start using, they're like, oh man, I can't believe that I went so long without having this. So things like schedule scenarios, right? Just being able to take a schedule and create a copy of it as a what if, or to model a scope change or whatever it happens to be, and do it quickly, and then be able to transition between different versions of the schedule very easily. See them all at the same time. You don't have to create all these copies of projects like you do in other solutions, right? Because everything's just contained in one project container, which adds a lot more efficiency. You don't have as much data bloat. People really like that. The schedule comparison capabilities are a big hit in OPC. And it makes it really, really easy to, just at the click of a couple of clicks, you're doing a comparison between two versions of the schedule. But the really neat part is that you can then, merge differences from one version of the schedule into another. And so, for example, if you're collecting status updates in a scenario instead of a live schedule, you can, just open those two things up and merge the changes from one to another just in a couple of clicks. So there's, and I could go on and on. There's tons more features that we've added to OPC. But there's, I think the overall kind of ease of use. I wouldn't say I'm not going to sit here and say OPC is easier to use than something like MSP. Because MSP has been around for a really long time, and it's similar to other Microsoft products. People are very familiar with how it works, and they do find MSP pretty easy to use. With OPC, I think people will be pleasantly surprised about how easy it is to use compared to some of our other tools like P6. You don't have to take months of training to learn how to use OPC. Let's put it that way.
That's great. And you kind of picked something out that when I'm going to put my old scheduler hat back on that I wish I had more than a decade ago is talking about risk management. Obviously, we're seeing more and more of that. That's becoming very critical in capital programs. When I had to do risk, we had to go from P6 to our risk program. When we were doing pull planning, you're doing the sticky notes on the whiteboard. But focusing on risk management, OPC's approach is to have risk integrated into your schedule, things like Monte Carlo simulation. That really changes the conversation compared to what MS Project users are used to. Maybe you can expand upon that a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a huge part of our overall strategy with OPC. We're trying to, as I mentioned, kind of create a scheduling platform, not a product, and risk is a really big part of that. So I don't know like how many who end up watching this or listening to this will have had some experience with Primavera risk analysis, also called PRA, Hurt Master way back in the day. We've had that product in our portfolio for a couple of decades now, and with OPC, we've taken a lot of that IP and kind of reimagined it in OPC, including all the Monte Carlo simulation. But the best part about it for our customers is that you don't have to buy another product, right? You don't have to pay for another product. The risk capabilities in OPC come with your schedule license. We don't charge separately for it. And so you're really getting a lot of value by having risk not only in the same product as your schedule, right? But they are completely integrated. If you want them to be, you don't have to do that. But if you want them to be, you can sync up your risks with your activities in the schedule, and then run your Monte Carlo risk analysis to get some future predictions. And then, of course, with the I'm sure we'll probably talk about AI at some point, or it'll come up at some point. With all the AI advancements, risk is one of the areas of OPC that is really ripe for future AI enhancements. So it's really, really beneficial for us that and for our customers that they're in the same product, because we are going to now be able to do things that we simply wouldn't be able to do without that risk data being in the same solution, or at least not as easily. So we're going to be able to do things like predict activity delays based on risk associations with activities without even running a Monte Carlo, right? So that's where we'll ultimately get to, and so and cost of ownership, for our customers is much lower because it's all part of the same product.
Yeah, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here, and we're going to talk a little bit more high level about the product. And I've seen this with customers, and I kind of want to get your interpretation of it, where you are seeing the biggest mistakes that organizations make when they are looking to approach a migration like this, going from one product to another, maybe a legacy product to a more modern tool.
Yeah, I love that you asked this question because it's something that we've experienced quite a lot with OPC. Not as much with MSP customers moving to OPC, but for our P6 customers moving to OPC, because P6 and OPC are made by the same vendor, Oracle, and they're both focused on scheduling. A lot of our users kind of expect them to be basically the same. They expect OPC to basically just be P6 in the cloud. And that's never been the approach that we've taken when designing and building OPC. Obviously, P6 does a lot of amazing things and it does a lot of them really, really well. We're not trying to fix anything that isn't broken, but it was an opportunity for us. Just like now is a great time for MSP customers to kind of reevaluate what the future of their scheduling practice. For us, as we started to design and build OPC, we looked at it as an opportunity to reimagine some things. And so it's not the same product, right? And even if you're an MSP customer and you are familiar with P6, you know, a big issue that customers have is thinking that moving from MSP or P6 to OPC will be just like moving to an online or a cloud version of P6. And that's not the case. There's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. I mentioned a few of them already with things like schedule scenarios and how some of the other features like schedule comparison, schedule health work. They work a bit differently than they do in P6. How you set up your layouts. We don't call them layouts in OPC, which throws some people off. So there's things like that, just little nuances that are true for any software product that people have to get used to, and it takes a little bit of time, And so I think the biggest mistake that our customers make is simply not allowing themselves enough of a transition period because they think it's going to be easier than it is.
It's and I've had quite a bit of experience with Microsoft Project, and one of the things that we've heard from customers and one of their concerns is in regards to data migration. And with, I'm going to say, with the free hand that you have with Microsoft Project to be able to create the data and not have really limits or guidelines behind it, what does the process look like for moving from, say, Project Online to OPC? Maybe you could explain what may come over cleanly and what organizations will need to be prepared to maybe do some heavy lifting.
Yeah, sure. And I just thought of something else I wanted to mention about the last question before I answer that one.
Sure.
And that is, when you're transitioning to OPC, where we found the biggest success is when the customer has a strong OPC champion that can really work with their teams to develop buy-in for the solution. You get a little bit of training in place, and the key here is having a transition plan in place, mapped out with timelines and all that. And you give your resources enough time to learn the tool. It doesn't have to be a ton of time, just a little bit of time, and it's generally been pretty successful. So I just wanted to wrap that up before answering the other question. So in terms of what comes over from MSP and how clean is it, The reality is that OPC and MSP are two different products made by two different vendors. They are not structured the same, right? Their architectures are completely different. Their features aren't the same. At least many of them aren't. And so, there's going to be issues, right? There's not issues, but there's going to be data that doesn't necessarily get translated like exactly as you would want, right? Because we can't. So if I think about an example, one of the ones that comes up, every once in a while, because maybe a customer's confused, they don't understand the difference. In MSP, they have milestones, but there's only one type of milestone. There's just a milestone, right? In OPC, just like in P6, we have both start milestones and finish milestones. And so there's no way for us to know when we import an MSP schedule. And by the way, you can import MSP schedules into OPC. Um, there's no way for us to know what type of milestone it should be. So we just have to pick one. I believe we bring them in as finish milestones, but I don't quote me on that. uh, but that's the type of thing. And there's a handful of other examples like that. Things in the calendars being handled a little bit differently, stuff like that. Not like huge issues, but there's a few of them, and they are documented. And customers will just need to give themselves a little bit of post-processing time after they import a project to clean up things like that. They'll have to decide, all these things came in as finished milestones. Are they really all finished milestones? Probably not. And now you got to go fix them.
Yeah, that's, what you talked about is pretty key. And obviously in P6 or OPC and P6, you have in your settings, you can set the data limits on it. And you really don't see that in MSP. And that's kind of where you get errors thrown
Yep.
on that. One of many discussions that we're having nowadays kind of leads to my next question. There's a lot of organizations out there right now that are running P6 parallel to MSP.
hmm
In your opinion, is this a moment that they could look into consolidating into one single platform?
Oh yeah, 100%. Again, like with most questions and answers, part of it is dependent on the company, of course. But it is a great opportunity. Most of our P6 customers do also use MSP. That's been our experience, right? And you know how that plays out and how they differentiate between what uses MSP and what uses P6 really does differ depending on the company. But in a lot of cases, we'll see like P6 getting used on some of the larger, more complex schedules, and MSP being used on some of the smaller projects. It could be, by department, right? Just based on what, the people in particular departments are used to using. So there's lots of mixed usage of P6 and MSP. I will also say there's also a lot of mixed usage of P6 and OPC. We have many, many customers using both
Mhm.
for different reasons, right? It could be for the same reasons they're using P6 and MSP together. Um, but it could also be that they're using OPC for things like task and risk, but still scheduling in P6. So there's lots of different mixed use cases. It is a great opportunity to move to a tool like OPC because it's really designed to handle or to be appropriate and a good fit for not just small projects but large projects as well. And really all sorts of different types of projects can be managed in a tool like OPC. So, you know, if there's, it's a good time to evaluate whether it's truly necessary to have multiple scheduling solutions. There may be cases where it is necessary, but if it's not, it's a good opportunity to consolidate because you know, it it would simply make our customers' lives easier, right? If they were just using one tool. Of course, there's cost considerations and all that are involved in it. But yeah, it's we have many customers doing this today.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it's one of the hills that we are starting to climb, and it almost feels like you're running a tough mutter in the middle of a downpour. And this relates to change management. We're starting to see that it's being underestimated in platform transitions. Microsoft Project users are often deeply embedded in that Microsoft ecosystem, Teams, SharePoint, Outlook. In your opinion, how would you help teams make that cultural shift, just not a technical one?
Yeah, it's hard for people to change what they're used to, I mean, so we are not, for example, we're not a Teams company, right? Like we use Zoom. Um, but a lot of the customers that I meet with, they use Teams, right? And every time I get on a Teams call, I have to like reorient myself to where the controls are, right? And um, that can sometimes be a little bit frustrating. As the years have gone on, I've gotten more used to it, but still, sometimes I'm like, yeah, how do I share? Okay. And then the reverse is also true, right? So for the folks using Teams, when they get on our Zooms, they're confused sometimes as well. So, I think a lot of it, there's only so much that we can do for something like this. Um, you know, I because Oracle doesn't have necessarily solutions for all those types of things that Microsoft has. Oracle doesn't have an equivalent of Teams, right? So there's nothing that we can necessarily incorporate into our solutions that would provide a similar experience. Um, so some of it will simply be about supporting our customers as they change their processes, understanding what their pain points are, listening, and trying to help however we can. That could be through future enhancements that incorporate some of these capabilities in some way into our solutions. It's certainly something that we've talked about. Um, but I think the future will determine a lot of that as some of these customers move over from MSP and we do start to collect their feedback. We'll hear about some of those pain points and we'll be able to hopefully address some of them. And I'll say, as the product management director for the product, that is the primary focus of my entire team, right? Is to work with our customers. We meet with them every single day and collect their feedback. And we have many ways of collecting feedback. And so, if customers are transitioning from MSP to OPC and anything like that becomes a pain point, well, let's talk about it and we'll figure out how we can help.
Fantastic. And there's a lot of marketing that's going on, not only by us, obviously other partners, Oracle in itself, in regards to, this current situation with Microsoft Project Online. And with the distribution, if a project controls director is listening to this and they're still using MSP Online, what, in your opinion, would be the first two or three steps they should take in thinking about a transition?
I would just say take out your credit card and go to the Oracle website. No, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Uh, no, so we have a ton of information out there about OPC on the Oracle website. A lot of our partners have a lot of great information on their sites as well. And so I would start there. Just go on the Oracle website, or I'm sure that, if you reached out to Dan or myself, we can send you relevant links as well. Um, but they're easy enough to find. There's tons of instructional videos for OPC on our website as well. You do have to sign up for an account on Oracle My Learn, but it's free and anybody can watch them. They'll provide a great background on all that the product supports. So just get familiar with some of the capabilities, just using all the information that's available out there. That's kind of step one. Step two, as part of that, it's kind of related, but specifically, there is a migration guide, uh, not from MSP to OPC, but from P6 to OPC, um, that has a lot of good information about some of the differences between the products. So if you are familiar with P6, and many of our MSP customers are, right? Um, if you are familiar and are curious about what the differences are between the two. So if you're kind of looking for where your next landing spot is, for some of our customers, P6 will be the right landing spot. right? It just depends on what their requirements are. So that's a good guide as well. And then I would also say, if anyone is interested, you can reach out to me directly, and I'll point you in the right direction. My name is Chad Wattendorf, and my email address is chad.wattendorf@oracle.com. So I'm always available. You can reach out, and I'll point you in the right direction, depending on, exactly what you're looking for, what type of information you're looking for. If you do go on our website, the website makes it very obvious how to interact with our sales org. I think when you go on, there's like a little thing that pops up on the bottom right that says, "Hey, reach out to a sales representative." So if it gets to that point where you're truly interested, you can reach out, and they'll get the process started to connect you with one of our experts, to start sharing some more detailed information about OPC.
We won't include your phone number, Chad. That way you're not getting spam calls day in and day out.
No, email address is okay, but phone number, yeah, I'm not gonna do that one.
So in that last answer, you talked about the migration and looking beyond the migration itself. What's the bigger opportunity here? Is it just a platform swap, or is this a chance for organizations to rethink how they do their project controls entirely?
Definitely the latter. Um, Between the new capabilities that OPC already provides beyond what tools like P6 and MSP do. So of course, I'm talking about things like risk and task and some of the advanced scheduling features. Um, that's reason enough in itself, to rethink how you're doing things. But the even bigger reason, is, and then this is where AI comes into the equation, with the rapid transformational shift that's happening due to AI. Obviously, that's impacting everything. It's impacting every business in some form, and so it's important for everyone to understand that for Oracle, Oracle's entire AI strategy is centered around Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Uh, that's OCI, right? And all of the AI infrastructure is built into there. And so that is pretty readily accessible to a tool like OPC, that is purpose built for the cloud from day one, and has access to these tools. And the ones that it doesn't, we're working on, giving that access over time here. Whereas for a tool like P6, for example, it's not quite as easy for us to do some of those things from an AI perspective. So the majority of our AI focus will be on the OPC side moving forward. So for any of our MSP customers that are evaluating where they're going moving forward, I'm sure that the AI question will be a big part of what they're trying to answer moving forward. And for us, that answer will largely be on the OPC side as opposed to the P6 side. And so it's not just true for MSP customers, even for our P6 customers, this is a time to think about, you know, moving, but not just as a swap of platforms, but to really rethink how you're doing things, and incorporating, other disciplines, other personas into your project controls processes in a tool like OPC, increasing your collaboration, and visibility into issues, um, and over time getting early warning, right, when things are about to go off the rails and you don't necessarily realize it. um, you're going to have those opportunities in OPC, and once those things become available, it will end up radically shifting how our customers work, right? And so it really is a time to rethink things, because a lot of what our customers spend time doing today, they won't have to spend as much time doing in the future, and can really focus on the highest value tasks for their schedulers and other roles. Um, and that will be more possible in a tool like OPC than P6 moving forward. So it's a great time to think about it, because it's converging with all of the AI transformation at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't going to bring anything into this on AI because I'm sure you and I could probably spend an hour on that, just that topic itself, because it seems to be ever evolving and ever changing. I know you guys don't post a roadmap, and I get to sit in on meetings where they talk about it, and it's again, it's changing and evolving on a monthly and quarterly basis within Oracle. So maybe sometime here in the short future, you and I can sit down and talk about the AI strategy, what is potentially, if available, to talk about, or what has already been embedded inside of OPC, because that's a great conversation that we're also having with a lot of our clients as well, too.
Yep. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. That's probably the thing I talk about the most these days. It's first and foremost on most of our customers' minds. It is really interesting how it is a convergence of events that are happening that are causing so many of our customers to reevaluate everything, right? And so for our MSP Online customers, obviously it's the deprecation of MSP Online. But for the majority of our customers, they are just like Oracle is, has been in the process of, formulating its AI strategy and rolling that out, and how we're addressing it both for our customers and for ourselves. All of our customers are doing the same thing,
Hmm.
right? And so, it's a pretty volatile time. There's a lot of decisions getting made. And we're here to help, right? We're pretty transparent about where we're headed. And me and my product team are happy to talk with any customer or potential client, that wants to get more of a look into the future of where we're headed, and we can certainly cover that from an AI perspective in the future. I actually did a webinar, or I'm sorry, a podcast or webinar, one of the two, about that a couple of months ago. Um, and yeah, that's out there. If anybody searches on the interwebs, you can search for extending the value of P6 and OPC, and you'll likely find it.
It's an ongoing discussion. We're having that with a lot of customers as well too, and it's ever changing, as I mentioned, because it seems every month, every quarter, every half year, there's more and more that's being rolled out there in terms of the AI strategies, what is already embedded inside of these tools, and what's obviously coming down the road. So, Chad, we've come to the end. I really appreciate you taking the time out today. If there's anything else that you'd like to share with our audience, please feel free now before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, again, thank you for having me, and thank you for being a great partner of ours. You've been working with you guys for many, many years, and I think it's been pretty successful on both sides. So thank you very much. And really, this is all about our customers, right? As a product team, as an organization, our goal is really to help our customers solve problems. And we do that by listening, right? We listen to what your pain points are. We try to understand your processes, and we try to build solutions for those things into our software. Over time, with the introduction of AI, you're going to have more and more control over that, and what that looks like. But we're here to help, and whether you're coming from MSP or whether you're coming from P6 or ASTA or whatever it happens to be, we're here to help, and we want to make your lives easier, right? That's what this is all about. So feel free to reach out if you can remember my name and want to talk more. I'm always happy to chat.
It'll be on the interweb very soon there, Chad. But yeah, we're on the precipice of almost 40 years as a partner. So it's been a long relationship since Don McNatty started his
Yeah.
his organization. But again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, and we appreciate it and look forward to doing some more of these down the road.
Yep. We'll be happy to, and I'll talk to you soon.